Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Grand Rising Experience. I'm probably going to sound like a broken record. It's because I think it's important to continue to say this because it is a sign of growth, and I believe that that is something that we need to be acutely aware of, as there are so many societal, cosmic, and planetary shifts that are happening right now. And I think that it is something that a lot of people can relate to, but I feel my sense of self just being flipped upside down. And I keep continuing to strip away at everything I thought I knew. And especially with what's transpired over the past 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic. And even more specifically, my ideas and beliefs around leadership and the concepts of elderhood are being challenged right now on a daily basis. And I want to preface this conversation by stating that I 100% do not claim to have your answers, but I am choosing to get raw and uncomfortable in pursuit of what feels honest, true, and authentic for me during this particular season of my life. One of my superpowers has always been my ability to rapidly ingest and distill complex information into bite-sized nuggets and compelling stories that can create powerful action for others. It's something that I've naturally done my entire life, but over the past few years, I've become more acutely aware of my ability to teach as I chose to step into a more public role to do so. This has created internal struggles and challenges for me because I don't see myself as more of a teacher than a student or more of a student than a teacher. It's this symbiotic relationship that governs how I move through life. And when put into the position to start breaking down exactly how I take in information and break it down and disseminate it in ways that others can understand, it's put me in this space where I feel like I have to put a title on it. And it really has become a challenge for me. It's brought up feelings of imposter syndrome, but also challenged me to look deeper into what it means to be a leader. More importantly, what the role of elderhood is supposed to look like in our current society and structure. We live in a society that values the ability to be hyperconnected, informed, and navigationally adept. Yet, as beings called humans, we have never been more disconnected, unwise, and directionless. And the disparity between what we as a society have allowed and thus created versus who we are created to be has placed humans at the top of the endangered species list and is rapidly fueling our self-extinction, in my opinion. But in the midst of the mayhem, especially as systems and structures are being shaken apart through rising levels of consciousness, we're finding a plethora of self-anointed leaders that are masquerading as experts and gurus and guides and teachers and coaches and insert your favorite persuasive marketing title that appear to be instructing the masses away from unity and deeper into division. And they're using talking points and checklists and carefully curated personas to attempt to fix perceived problems instead of just allowing the medicine contained within their own stories of navigating self-accountability and self-responsibility and self-forgiveness to empower others to discover it within themselves. I say this as someone who feels guilty and who has fanned the flames of the InfoWars throughout the pandemic. And I'm now being confronted and humbled with just a lot of hard truths around what has bubbled up during that time. And as I seek to listen far more than I speak, I have found myself craving the insights and distilled wisdom of storytellers and philosophers because I've been left uncomfortably full by various experts toting courses and checklists and instructions and how-tos and hacks that solve your problems of the day. I've created those myself. But now, after witnessing what happens when you are inundated with so much information and the analysis paralysis that seems to follow that, and the ability to not self-navigate when all of the information has been placed in front of you, I find myself instinctively trusting those who are willing to lay bare their raw stories versus hiding behind filtered, photoshopped, and carefully edited outcomes. And it's led me to believe, and not even believe, but know that right now I don't need your solutions. I need your stories so that I can begin to uncover my own solution and figure out what feels right for me through my own lens of experience, knowledge, and distilled wisdom. I think what it really boils down to quote Socrates, is I know that I know nothing. And I say that because one of the biggest lies we appear to tell ourselves is that information alone equals learning. And even worse, that the accumulation of information equals knowledge. And from this knowledge, a viable one-size-fits-all solution can be derived. Learning is, in fact, the direct result of information and action. And knowledge is born inside of the trial and errors of learning. So accumulated information without action is just a hypothesis or idea. And even if others are actively putting the same information into action and achieving the expected outcome, until you do the same, you cannot say for certain whether or not the information you are receiving is valuable or wise. And I say this because no two people will ever experience the same reality. So to believe that another can have the solution to your problem without question or vetting it for yourself is incredibly short-sighted. And the wisest people I know and have come across allow one simple question to lead them, and that's why. They intrinsically understand that why is not a question to be answered, but instead a sacred invitation to cultivate your capacity to learn. And it presents an opportunity to separate the ego from the higher self. And if you want to better understand this statement, ask anyone, especially the self-anointed, why? Why? Why do you do what you do? Why are you saying what you say? And pay very close attention to how they respond. Do they immediately drop into their ego and then hit you just with a wave of information, facts, data, feelings to attempt to prove themselves? Or do they just actively call in and welcome a deeper sense of inquiry and pause? When you're asking people why, part of that is to determine whether or not they're holding a point of view, a belief, or ideology that requires external validation, or if they have the wisdom and maturity to allow you to examine your own conclusions based on your personal experience and level of current awareness. It can very quickly show you whether or not someone is attempting to lead you or simply show you how they are learning to lead themselves. It's a very powerful question. When we meet why with further inquiry, it can push us to excavate deeper truths and really start to invoke and tap into our critical thought faculties. And when we're confronted with the word or question why, how we respond to it can reveal our beliefs and biases and blind spots and triggers. Why is a very powerful question that triggers the ego. And in my experience, asking why holds the power to separate the imitators from the initiators, because it It's a question that becomes either a beacon to illuminate paths through tumultuous times, or it can be very quickly turned into a weapon that's used to mask and deflect attention from our own fears and shame. I think it's safe to say that everyone has been on both the receiving, giving end of a why question, and have both sat in deeper inquiry and also maybe not acted from our best self. And I can remember a situation where I was at work and I was dealing with a supplier, and there was a very, very big problem that had arisen with our supplier, and it came through information that was being concealed from us, information that, had we just had it from the get-go, everything would have been fine. But when asked why, the rage and the uncontrolled anger that flew out of this person was absolutely insane. And had there not been a screen between me and this person, he literally had a physical reaction to me asking the question why, where he stood up and put his face directly in his webcam and started screaming. It's a very, very powerful question. And when we attempt to answer why for another person, instead of leading them to discover an answer for themselves, we fundamentally impede their ability to learn, because, again, answering why can be a very ego-driven response, and it puts us in a position to project our perceptions onto their canvas. And this becomes particularly evident in how we approach the inquisitive nature of children. Children love the question why. And how you answer that question for a child as you learn more, or if you've dove into inner child healing and inner child trauma, your response to how you answer the question why can be found imprinted inside of how they grow up reacting and responding to life. And this is why I believe, kind of funny, we need to unburden ourselves of the notion that we are, have, or need leaders, teachers, gurus, coaches, guides. Because to be one implies that leadership is a noun, like a person, instead of a verb, which is a function and capacity that you must consciously cultivate over the entirety of your life. And it further indicates that you learned from or were cultivated by one. And given the current state of our society and the direction that we're headed, and as I said earlier, it's this false prophet, and I say prophet as in monetary profit and also in the terms of religious profit, because they are kind of one and the same. I don't think leaders truly exist, because if they did, elderhood in its truest and highest form would be apparent, and we absolutely would not be currently co-creating our collective demise. Because of the past 3 years, I mean, really it's been longer, but it's been magnified over the past 3 years. If we've learned anything, it's that the only thing more dangerous than a self-anointed leader is one who comes bearing more answers than questions and solutions instead of their story. Through this process of being led, it has exposed the lost art of learning, the verb, the act of learning, and held in front of our face the imminent extinction of the elder. And the elder is one of the most important functions that can exist inside of a healthy society. And it is something that we, you, me, everyone has within their capacity to resurrect. And in modern times, elder has become synonymous with age, not wisdom, an identity instead of a function. And it appears that our growing inability to patiently learn has stripped us of the knowledge required to self-lead in an ethical, moral, and just manner. I can't go into a conversation about elders and elderhood without being reminded of the seven fires prophecy of the Anishinaabe. And it's a prophecy that you will find across most spiritual and religious texts. The teachings of the seven fire prophecy state that when the world has been befouled and the waters turn bitter by disrespect, human beings will have to choose between aligning with God or with men who believe themselves to be God. And the degradation of the role of the elder and elderhood has long been prophesized within the sixth and seventh fire of the Anishinaabe. And just to read you a quick quote, it says, "In the time of the sixth fire, it will be evident that the promise of the fifth fire came in a false way. Those deceived by this promise will take their children away from the teachings of the elders. Grandsons and granddaughters will turn against the elders. In this way, the elders will lose their reason for living. They will lose their purpose in life. At this time, a new sickness will come among the people. The balance of many people will be disturbed, and the cup of life will almost become the cup of grief." And we don't have to look too far to see part of the destruction of the nuclear family has been removing the elder from the home, that we no longer need to care for our elders. We no longer need to learn from our elders. They have just become old and useless and a burden on society, and they get relegated to senior living facilities and they become someone else's problem. And that is a huge, huge disservice that we have done to humanity by losing the respect for the wisdom that life carries when you have that many years under your belt. The knowledge and the wisdom that's garnered is far from useless. But if we no longer make it relevant, why should anyone care? Why should they care? Why should they feel like anyone is going to listen to them, that they have anything of value to say? And we do have an issue and a sickness in our society right now where people don't feel heard. And we have to look to our elders and whether or not we even have the ability to hear them. We can't hear ourselves, let alone anyone else. And this goes back to the self-navigation and why we don't need leaders. We need to be able to learn how to listen to ourselves. Going on a rant here. But in the time of the seventh fire, new people will emerge. They will retrace their steps to find what was left by the trail. Their steps will take them to the elders, who they will ask to guide them on their journey, but many of the elders will have fallen asleep. They will awaken to this new time with nothing to offer. Some of the elders will be silent because no one will ask anything of them. The new people will have to be careful in how they approach the elders, and the task of the new people will not be easy. And this is where we're at right now. So I can only assume that as we're moving into the age of Aquarius and we're seeing this rapid rise in consciousness and people becoming more aware of the value of knowledge and wisdom, that it now becomes incumbent on these newer generations to assume the resurrection of elderhood. I believe for elderhood to reemerge and become trusted as the wisdom keeper of our society, we must redirect our attention into cultivating our capacity to learn and stop instantly gratifying the narcissistic inner child who feels entitled to their wants and demands. Convenience culture has turned us into arrogant know-it-alls. Because you can get anything you want at the touch of a button, you carry an encyclopedia in your pocket everywhere you go. It's made us lazy. We have to learn how to learn. The act of learning, the act of doing something over and over and over again until you get it right, instead of relying on someone else's 10 ways to do something. So to be worthy of elderhood, we must work on honing the patience, fortitude, and focus required to not only learn, but extract, apply, and embody the invaluable wisdom birthed inside of the act of learning. The elder is always created, never anointed, never appointed. And our capacity to learn is contingent on developing the skills to self-validate, accept what is, and forgive ourselves for the times when we didn't know or do better, so that future generations do not inherit the cycles and systems we've been held hostage by. And the reemergence of elderhood requires that we know when to shift from speaking to listening, from instruction into observation, and from being into doing. Too many spiritual woo-woos focus too much on being. And yes, we do have to be. But if you want to be greater than you currently are, you have to do. It's important that we get into the doing. When you choose to dedicate yourself to cultivating your capacity to learn instead of leading, you create opportunities and increase the capacity for elderhood to make itself known. And it's because the elder and the student are the same thing. Neither is a title that is bestowed, but a capacity to be consciously cultivated through curiosity and love, occupied in the present moment, and stored it by village-mindedness, not tribalism. And this gets back to my beginning statement and the confusion and the conundrum that I found myself in when attempting to consider myself a teacher when I'm always in the active role of student. And I think this hits at the heart of what it means to start bringing elderhood back, to be in an active state of learning and to allow others to witness you learning out loud. Another issue that we run into in our modern day society is that we only want everyone to see our best face and our best foot forward. We don't allow them to see us grow. So instead of seeing the micro adjustments and the tiny steps forward, we just see leaps and bounds. That's not productive. Not only is it not productive, it's not true. And when we hide that critical element of what it means to learn and allow others to witness us doing it, we rob ourselves of the ability to step into that student-teacher role, and we deprive others of the ability from learning from our mistakes. And maybe that's what we need to look at it. It's not elderhood, it's not student, it's elder-student. And it represents a symbiotic relationship in which there absolutely is no separation. And they are the embodiment of the Alpha and the Omega and the representation of who is, who was, and who is to come. And it, for me, is the essence of what it means to be human, embodying a spirit, and spirit in human form. This is just some food for thought to take with you into your day and into the world. And next time you find yourself in a position to either extend and share what you know or learn from someone else, consider your role and your future role in society and what that means to step into this role of the elder student and start to reimagine and re-envision what a future void of leaders and rife with elder students, what would that look like? What would that feel like? How could that raise humanity? That's all I have for today. So if this episode resonated with you or stirred something in your soul, please consider heading over to grandrisingexperience.substack.com. Leave a comment, engage with other people inside of the community, or leave a rating and review wherever you are listening to this. Every little bit helps and ensures that this can reach who needs to hear it. Until next time, I love you.